Only comes in threes.
Deze is hartstikke awesome Jeff.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Inside Scoop with Alex and Jeff. I'm Alex Dingman.
I'm Jeff Doss, and it's the real Alex Demon this time. So,
Yes.
welcome, guys. Welcome. What's up, man? It's been a couple weeks since I've seen you. How are things going?
Man. It's been a little bit, but I gotta be honest, man. That show with Mallory was nice. That was good.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I was trying to chime in a little bit and just, listen as much as I could. It wasn't, great service where I was at. So not only was it a good move for me to not do the show, it was a great move to have Mallory on because that was a fantastic show. So everybody, all the insiders who have not checked out last week's show, go ahead and check it out because it was a very, very good show. But dude, I gotta tell you, we are at what's the 11th day of the month so far?
Yes.
And I have stayed in 5 different places so far this month.
Wow, bro. Wow.
It's nuts. So we went on vacation. We left on the 2nd. We go on vacation in Michigan. It was kind of country. It was Reed City, Michigan. So even like the people I knew who were like out there are like, I don't even know what that is, which I was like, exactly. Right. But it was a cool, nice house that we were all staying in, a big one right on its own lake. So it was cool. So then we come back. Now, here's a wild one. The day we left, my wife and I were already planning on doing this summer. We decided we were going to redo 2 bathrooms in our house at the same time, which is like, all right, perfect timing. We can do it earlier because we thought we were going to do it like in September.
Right.
And we're like, oh, and we're going to be gone for the majority of it. No problem.
Right.
Problem. No problem. We haven't even close to getting anything done really yet. The only thing that's happened is just more stuff is being torn apart, like everything.
Seriously,
it's unreal.
Dude,
like
that's never fun.
So the amount of dust in this house, it is unlivable. It's unlivable, right? I came back just to do the show, and then I'm leaving. And I'm getting the heck out of it. I'm not even kidding you. Right?
Wow, bro.
So we go on vacation. We come back like Thursday night, like whatever the 5th was, right? So we stayed here like for like a day and a half, and then we're getting the hell out, and we went and stayed in a hotel for like, I don't know, 2-3 days. Then we went and stayed at a friend's house because we're like, all right, how much longer can we really do this, right? We're not just gonna because then the kids, they have no sense of normalcy whatsoever. So then we're like, all right, we'll stay at a friend's house, and there's like tornadoes touching down around here, and there's just thunderstorm. It's just Storm City. Like all the trees are just torn up.
Wow.
So luckily, we were there because they got a Generac, which is like a super generator.
Yeah, the super.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're not even going to attempt to turn anything off? He's like, no, man, we're fine. He's got every light in the house on. He's got TVs on. I'm like, all right, well, just good thing we're here. All right. And then now we're staying at like a different house that's like 5 miles from our house. And like the people don't even live there. Like they have a house in like New York and Africa. And I'm like, well, who lives? That's what I'm saying. I'm like, so who even lives here? Because it looks like someone's coming back.
Yeah.
Right. And apparently they're like, no, stay as long as you want. And I'm like, well, this is odd.
Man.
This is really odd. But
this is crazy.
But I'm grateful. So.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for everyone watching. Chris Walker, what's up? Andrew, what's up? Mike Bates, how you guys doing? We're about to have a special guest on in a little bit. Oh, here he is. Look at him. Chugging his water. What's up, Jarrett?
How's it going, guys?
Oh, man.
Good.
So we're excited to have Jarrett Leiker on. we had wanted to have last week, but again, guess what? The times didn't work out, and he was excited about watching the beginning of karate in the Olympics, man. And it was really
Word.
cool. And we were watching it as we were going. I'll be honest, man, it was a little hard to do both at the same time.
I don't know how you guys did that at the same time.
I tried a little bit, it was a little tough, but then I stayed up till like, I don't know, 2 a.m. watching the Kumite and took a little nap, woke back up. So, Jared, man, what did you feel watching that?
I thought it was incredible. Just for the kata, of course, I have been watching all those athletes in person qualifying for leading up to this, because I've been to all the Premier League tournaments since 2019, well, end of 2018, and all the Series A. So I've kind of watched all of them work their way up, and some of them, of course, have to maintain their position this whole time, which is, as you know, when you're at the top, is really the hardest. The referees are always looking for every little detail to try to, oh, I've seen you better, all the things we're used to. And so, that it was great, man. I was excited to see it. And really the Kumite, I was excited to watch as well, because I think, it's a different rule set. But when you have all the best fighters in the world, and whatever discipline or whatever sport it is, it's still going to be exciting.
Right.
Whether it's, your choice. I mean, of course, I still love point fighting.
Right.
Is my, but it was great to watch. So
I
same
agree
as you,
too.
didn't sleep much.
Yeah. I mean, for me, honestly, like I found myself really enjoying the Kumite. I didn't even look at it comparing it to point fighting. I just didn't. I didn't look at it that way. I just said it's different. And I guess like growing up, it was always like I went to Kumite Classic for at least 10 years in a row, right? And every year that was a separate division. And so I always knew that it was different. You know what I mean? Like it just
How do you
wasn't the
not
same.
compare it to point fighting, though? I mean, how do you look at that and just not go, it's
I
literally
get it.
point fighting. They're getting points. They're fighting. It's in the same concept.
I get what you're
how
saying.
do you
I
not?
just know it's a different. It's still a different mindset. The
I
blitz
suppose.
is not really a factor. It's different. The multiple kicks aren't there. There's different things like that. So for me, I just looked at it because, hey, really, when you think about it, it's really one of the first contact sports that's been in the Olympics, because judo and wrestling, the only other ones, you're not striking people, right?
Well, there's taekwondo.
All right. Okay. And besides taekwondo.
Well, the first one we get to watch somebody punch someone in the head, at least.
Exactly. Yeah.
Since the entire,
That's an
taekwondo, we
accurate
don't have.
point.
And there was no gear and things that you see in taekwondo, right? So again, and okay, my bad. See, here we go.
Yeah, Drew, that was a good one.
That is a good one. But what I'm saying is, like, we can go right into the controversy, of the knockout and stuff.
Yeah, let's do that, because I honestly did not watch any of the Kumite, because it's the exact same thing, Jeff, that we were just talking about. I can't look at that and go, yeah, this looks exciting to me. This looks exciting for me to get behind. I just look at this and go, it's got Swiss cheese through it. That's the way I view it. So let's go with, so the controversy, the gold medal round, guy gets disqualified because he knocks the other guy out. I went back and watched the fight. All right. So gets disqualified. So the guy who's unconscious gets the gold medal. That's the Cliff Notes.
That's
that's the Cliff Notes version.
Yeah.
Jarrett, tell us a little bit more behind this, more than that, because really, that's about it. That's about what I was able to gather.
Well, it's crazy, because the weight classes, how they had to condense them for the worlds, is that, the Iranian guy, he's been #1 world ranking, world champion. I mean, the guy's a great fighter. But I mean, he clearly met his match that day. I mean, the guy from Saudi was up in the fight, and he scored that Ippon. I mean, I thought, of course, the rules, just the way they state with the skin touch rule, as far as the level of contact, I just thought it was just like, we see in our sport too. He's like one tatami different from the other. I mean, the Italian girl got her nose busted wide open, and they didn't disqualify in a previous category.
Correct.
And then in that one, I mean, the guy was, if you watched his head movement too, he kept leaning his head down, looking, and he literally, he went
He
for
stepped.
he went
It
for the
looked
yuka. He
like
went for the punch. He
Yeah.
got clipped.
Right.
And
yeah,
I
it
didn't
looked
think it
like the
was
level
excessive at
wasn't like
all.
the kick wasn't going here. The kick was going like at its chest, but
Right.
he like lunged
Yeah.
and got so low that it's like, how do you penalize the person throwing the kick?
You're
Right.
so right, man. And if you, like you said, the head movement, if you watched him just right before it, he kept leaning his head down and leaning his head down. And,
Yeah.
block with your face. That's what
Right.
happens, I guess,
Yeah, and
I
then
don't know.
there was even the first night. I'm trying to remember what division that was the first night, but there was the guy who was actually a former world champion from Italy. He was knocked out during that fight.
Yes, in
Yeah.
-6 in the lighter weight, in the
Yeah,
lightest
lightweight.
men's
He was
Kumite
knocked
division.
out, and they didn't even do anything about it. They just said, "Oh, get
It
up!" Like,
was standing on the line, literally
yeah,
like stumbling.
it
Yeah,
was bad,
absolutely.
and I'm sitting there like, okay,
So what's
so
the
my men,
official
I'm
rule
like,
for
they need to
something like
stop,
this?
like just talk to him for a little bit, give him a time, and
Is
they
there
let
an
him go.
is
So
there
I
an
feel
official
like
rule at all?
say again, Alex.
Is there an official rule for something like this at all?
Yeah, the thing is, like, with the skin touch rule, as far as like how they score and whether it was excessive contact, it's just, I feel like that's one of the downfalls. WKF has so many rules for rules for rules for rules
Yeah.
for rules.
Okay.
And the thing is like they try to think of everything, but at the end of the day, that's a judgment call.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is. That's a you can interpret. Alex watch a fight, Jeff watch a fight, I watch a fight. We can interpret the rules, what
Three
it says.
different ways.
Okay, do I think that was
Right.
excessive? Do I feel that was more than skin touch for the score? So I think it's tough situation. That, and it's sad too, because with karate not getting the nod on 2024,
Right.
that's the last thing
Thing
that they're
everyone
leaving
saw.
the taste in everyone's mouth
Right.
is an IOC. They don't want controversy, and that's
Nope.
the last thing that people are seeing is memes of this guy passed out on the podium,
Right.
in first place. So
Right. That's not.
it's
Yeah.
just too bad. It's too
Right.
bad that it ended that way.
That's not good. Let's get away from controversy and let's just talk because there's lots of stuff to talk about tonight, man.
Yeah.
Thank you again for joining us. One thing before, because if you guys see our background, but everyone on the podcast, we are sponsored by Virtual Fight Tour, and we just want to thank Jesse Ray for all that he does for the sport, and we're excited. We're going to talk a little bit about Virtual Fight Tour working with you guys August 21st as the finals for the American Internationals. So we're excited to talk about that pretty soon. So yeah, it's gonna be a great time. And man, it's been almost a year since Virtual Fight Tour debuted. So it's gonna be great. All right, so let's break down since we're on the USA Karate and the
Let's
the
break down the
WKF
katas.
and the Olympic Karate. Let's break down just the Olympic karate. Women's forms. I felt like it went the way it should. Maybe explain like what you were talking to me about, like how it was judged and what they look at.
Yeah, so 70% of your score is going to go towards a technical score and 30% towards athletic. And so the referees have two scores, right, that they give, and then it's weighted based upon the computer system. And then if there's a tie, there's like a 15 criteria way to break the tie of how they have it set up. And so, yeah, it's pretty unique. I've only seen it go down. I've seen the farthest like to 8 criteria, I believe 8 or 9th criteria to break a tie one time.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
anyways, so the way that they score, they look at 2 things. And I think that was that's something that people in the US, especially from sport karate world, they may watch 2 katas and they may see like this person was more explosive and more athletic. And they're like, how come they didn't score higher? Right. Or maybe they watch 2 people do the katas back to back. Right. And they say, I like this one better, right?
Right.
And so, that happens a lot when you watch it, but you have to understand, like, for example, I'll give you an example. If maybe like Damian Quintero was in the same pool with Ariel, right?
Mhm.
And I thought Ariel gave the best katas of his life, by the
Yeah.
way. I thought it was just amazing performances.
You're talking
But
about
like
the dude from Spain, right?
yeah, Quintero is from Spain. Yeah. So
That's all right.
Quintero kept scoring higher every round, right? And in his Anandai, like in the last round when they all did, They
The
did
same
all
form.
Ohandai the second round, and they did Anandai. And for someone who's watching, they're like, oh yeah, maybe Ariel was a little bit stronger, and I thought maybe his performance was really good, and it was. But it's like when they score the technical performance, there is like the WKF technical director, and he educates all the referees on, okay, this style of karate or kata, this is how it should be scored, right? And so he was doing a rueru kata. So Sakamoto Sensei used to be the technical director for the WKF,
Whoa.
and he's the head of rueru. Mind you, the coach of Rio Kuna, he was also sitting in the box. So he coaches. When I was in Okinawa, the technical director of the WKF was there. And Sakamoto is telling him, this is how you score the katas. This is the way that it should be done, right?
Isn't that
Damien
a conflict
was
of interest, though?
no, so meaning like he's the head of the system, right? And so imagine he is the guy that's educating the referees on this is how the kata should be done. Then the technical director educates the referees, and the referees will score it. This is why Kiyuna and Quintero, their technical scores are always so
Always
high, because they follow the way that Sakamoto teaches the kata, right? And so
Okay.
if you are deviating, which the rules allow you to, but if you are deviating and you are making some changes, some of these referees that are like strictly by the book, they're like, okay, this is the way that we were told to score it. This is how we're going to score.
Right.
And that's why you saw Kiyuna's scores 28, 27, Quintero 27, 20, really, really high. So I think that's important for people to kind of understand of like,
Yeah, because
yes,
before I didn't understand that.
Right.
So maybe tell us a little bit more like black and white. What was it that the Spaniard was so much more technical than like Ariel? Like, why was it so much technically
I'll tell
better?
you, in the first round, I mean, there's hardly anybody that does better Goju-Ryu in the world than Ariel, and his Karumfa was killer. I think he should have scored higher in the first round on his Karumfa. Technically, I think he was there, and Quintero is like one of my good friends too, and Ariel, but just objectively speaking, I thought his Karumfa was better.
You thought Ariel should have won
in the first round.
First round.
In the first round, because they both advanced. But in the second and third round, I just think again that Quintero is more, he's the cleanest of all of the guys out there. So I think his technical score is always so high, and I think Ariel's athletic score should be one of the highest out there. Period. He's so explosive and powerful, but it's only 30% of the score.
Yeah, and that's where
it's only 30% of the score.
Yeah.
And so if you are doing the technical aspect and you are winning on that part, you are cleaner, and maybe you are faster, you're following how the kata should be done and performed, he's going to score higher, so that's why I believe he advanced to the gold medal round, is just his technical score is higher. And really, to be honest, kata is, these referees are a lot of the same referees that you see, and so they know, look, these are the guys. It's not like Kumite. It's not like Kumite, where you had a girl from Bulgaria that was, the 25th ranked in the world and made it on the last qualification thing, and then goes in and wins the Olympics, had never won a medal, had never, really done much. And she goes in and shocks the world. In kata, you're not seeing that.
And the brackets and things are set up for a certain way, right? Like, honestly, for me, like, I felt like, I'm not hating on Damien. I think he had the best bracket for him to be in there.
100%. But by the rankings, they had that he was number one. So, and then they put Kiyuna over here, because Damien is actually the world ranked number one, and Kiyuna is, even though hasn't lost to him except for one time several years ago, it's that because Damien has gone to more events.
Okay.
Right? And so so Kiyuna was number two, and then the next ranked was Ali Sofoglu, which I thought was interesting that Ali was on the side of Kiyuna. So
me too. I thought so too.
If Ali would have been over there with Ariel and Damien, I mean, that could have been a whole different.
It could have changed everything. And so for me, one of the things that I don't like I'm okay with the pools. I think it's cool and move those three, but I feel like, okay, eventually those three all need to mix and do a 6, and then the top 2 go for first and second. The rest of the 4, 3, 4, 5, 6 go for bronze, right? And just
I'll tell you what
yeah.
they did in Paris, and I loved it. It's what you just said. They took the top 4, and then so maybe it was like A, B, C, D. First round, A versus D, and then B versus C, and then A versus C, and everyone had to face
Ariel was
everyone.
explaining that to us. Yeah, remember
And
Ariel was explaining to us when he was on the show.
yeah,
And I thought that was the coolest thing I've heard, man. I mean, that's
Then you get a true placement
winner.
for every single one. There's not be like, oh yeah, but if I would have went head to head with, no, it's a true placement. That's
Alex, imagine you fighting in the tournament and being the winner, but never facing like imagine if you had to fight everybody, literally every single person, versus like maybe you got 2 guys over here that knock each other out, and then you get one of them in the final. But imagine if the bracket is like you have to cross. Obviously, it'll take forever, but imagine that tournament. You fight everybody.
Right.
So that's kind of what this is.
And they did that in the Kumite though. Like the Kumite was a round robin.
Same.
Right. And so that's what I guess I liked about watching the Kumite was that everyone got to fight everybody. I know there was like groups of 5, but still like they had to fight everybody. So that's what I enjoyed about the Kumite part. So
I think at the end of the day, it comes down to time, TV time. Kata takes, 3 or 4 minutes every one, and even though the Kumite match is 3 minutes, I think it just comes down to time.
All right. So we're getting a little bit of the negative here. What was the worst part you think of the kata that maybe didn't connect with people?
Oh, I was literally going to ask a similar question.
That's a good one. That's a really great question. So I think, the announcer, some people really liked him, and he announces all the WKF events, and I think he does a great job. But
he's
literally, like, yeah, he is. But nobody cares that Super MP means 108 hands, and that it comes like give him a little bit of that. But let's talk more about like what I just said, what the referees are looking for, and maybe why this person, passed the other one. Like educate the audience as to what we're looking for. They all, especially when they all do the same kata, it's like if you're watching and you don't know anything about it, it's like tell us why that guy won and these other 2 didn't.
Yeah, it's kind of like what I explained during when I was saying what we needed better for the U.S. Open commentary. It was the exact same thing because I just feel like there's certain things of why people need to understand why possibly this person who just said killed it got last or got.
So watch gymnastics.
Yeah,
and it's clear when they say level of difficulty is your start value is so high that even with an error, you are going to outscore the other people.
Yeah, they explain
makes sense.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And it's a really good analogy you just gave too, because when we watch gymnastics, we feel like we know what we're looking at. We're like, oh yeah, clearly. I mean, look, did you see the feet? You saw the feet, right? You've never done any balance beam. I've never done anything like that. Yet I feel like I know what I'm talking about. And I have no clue what I'm talking about.
No, for sure. I agree. Yeah, for me, that was the biggest thing was like, I think less, and even he was repetitive too. Like when there was the katas, it was like when somebody would go, he would kind of repeat some of the same things.
He would.
And, so I wish I would have seen a little bit more of that. And then really, to be honest, like the qualification system, they did the best that they could. But like a few of the athletes that were there, because they used the world ranking and then they used the Olympic standing and then they used the qualifying tournament. And then the last couple spots, it was like the tripartite commission and the underrepresented nations. Like there were a few people that it was like, it's too bad because not all of the best people were there. Like most of the best people were there, but there were some people like there's because you can only have one per nation. I mean, any 3 of the Turkish guys, any one of them could have medaled.
Right.
Any one of them. I mean, Ozdemir, the guy who's 18. I mean, for me, he's my favorite of the 3 of them. And it's like, it was just a matter of that. And then there were a couple that made it in for like on the women's side that, they don't even win rounds at any of the big events, and but I get it. You have to show representation of all the nations and get a world picture of it. But that was just for me the disappointing part, that I know that there could have been maybe 1 or 2 other people in there that could have really mixed things up and vied for a medal that didn't get the opportunity. But
Yeah, so
That's about it.
I agree, man. It's like there's things like that should have been explained more. And again, even for me, like you look at the scoring, Ali really had the second best scoring, right? I believe, right?
Yeah, and
Um,
you're going before Kiuna every time. I mean, come on.
yeah, I
You know,
know.
he's like,
It's just yeah, I mean, and he's not in that the way the brackets work. He technically, if you just would have put them all together, he would have been second place. So it kind of puts in a weird thing. And I think it was confusing too that there's 2/3 or 2 bronzes. A little confusing on that part. For me, it was the slow mo. I'm gonna be honest.
oh,
I'm
all
sure
the slapping,
all the
all that.
slapping and then
Oh
the link
man.
wrist, and it's just like the only person you did say that from was Kiona, man. Like barely, but it's just like, and some, the whole time Andrew and I were going back and forth talking, and it's just like, just Okinawans are built
So
different, man.
Bro,
But I mean,
he's I swear he's a cyborg. I
he
mean,
is, he
he's like
is, he
he's
is.
Terminator.
well, that's what I wanted to ask a little bit about. So tell me what separated Ryu because he won the gold. What made him that much better? Because I'm really curious to hear your side on that one. Because and this I couldn't tell. Just my perspective. When I'm watching the gold medal round, I really couldn't see what I tried to predict. Like, oh yeah, it's gonna be this guy, it's gonna be this guy, and I just couldn't. I already knew the outcome when by that time I was watching that. From your perspective, did they get it right? And what was the big difference maker?
100% they got it right. But the difference maker of Kiuna is you don't. It's hard to explain until you feel it. And I've been on the tatami training next to him before, as well as watching him compete so many times, and never in my entire life have I felt the energy and power when one man delivers a technique like him. I mean,
Right.
it is a force. I mean, there are referees that say they say they feel the wind behind his techniques when he hits. It's like,
Right.
and I can tell you, I mean, the guy is just a monster. And so I just think like that, his overwhelming power and explosiveness is it's overwhelming. It's so much that
Yeah.
he's like, wow. Now, again, we go back to the scoring 70-30. He does all Rue katas, right? So he does Ohan, Anan, Ohan Dai, Anan Dai. He does all katas from his own system. So his technical score is always going to be really high because his sensei, like I mentioned, is the head of the system. They
Right.
created the katas.
Yeah.
So he's always going to do everything by the book there. And
By the book,
I
yeah.
mean, honestly, I mean, 3 times world champion, has lost 1 time since, in the last 4 or 5 years. There's the aura of that too. I
Wow.
mean, there is the impact of that too, that it's like, oh, he's
Yeah.
this guy,
Yeah.
and yeah, for sure. I mean, it's hard, but just the same things, guys, that we see in sport karate, open sport karate, is like the referees. Oh, this is this guy.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's real there
Exactly.
too. You know
Yep.
what I mean? It's
Oh
the
yeah,
same
it
thing.
definitely is.
So
Yeah, I mean, it was something like years ago when Casey came back and she competed against Daniela at US Open. And Casey was like, I think Daniela even should beat me. And she didn't, And even I remember Casey even saying, is it just because it's me or, and she's like, but is that right? I mean, and there is that whole thing, and that's why you got to love Casey because she'll be honest about that. It's like, maybe some of that was because of who I am, but you earned it. You've earned that, So yeah.
yeah, for sure. The whole thing of like that, the same thing we know, just like you mentioned, Casey. I mean, the great, in my opinion, is the greatest to ever do it. And it's like she step on the mat, and it's doesn't matter if she comes back after so many tournaments. Like it's still going to be like, oh man, she's
It's
a
so
problem.
good. Yeah.
She's a problem, and she hadn't even bowed in yet. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Yeah.
And so
Exactly.
yeah,
It's a great way
I
to put
mean,
that.
that's real. And I think with it being in Japan too, that of course plays a factor.
Yeah.
As well. But really, at the end of the day, Alex, to answer your question, I mean, they got it right 100%. And I think because he dominates on both elements, the technical and the athletic,
The athletic. Yeah.
he's so far ahead that you know, everybody is doing all of everyone's strategies are based around what do I do to counter what he does? I mean, Spain, everything they do is when I go there for training, everything is the speed, the athleticism, analyze this part of the kata, apply it to a strength training program to improve this one piece. How can we be faster? How can we show more finesse? Where are the elements where he has any weakness? And let's try to exploit it. So, you know, it's like when there's a great fighter in the world, like right now, somebody like Bailey, and everybody is watching him. Like, where are the holes? What are we going to do? How do we game plan around this guy? That's how people coach, you know, to go against Kiuno.
Awesome, man. Awesome. All right, let's keep it on the Olympics, because the big news, a month ago, was that Waco was now officially recognized by the Olympics, and you are the Waco USA director for tatami, right? It's not.
Vice director.
Vice, all right, my bad.
Yeah, but yes. So yeah, my dad and I work on that side with, and of course we're working with Rob Zabilski on Rob is the president, of course, of Waco USA, and then they also run on the ring sports side. And yeah, it's really exciting, man. I'll tell you, I have to say, he works tirelessly, man, and I know Alex can attest to that too, because he goes up there a lot by Rob. You know, Rob and his team have really done a great job, and they are continually doing a great job of trying to grow here in the United States. And as if you paid attention to, even like last week, Karali had their camp, you know, in Hungary, and as they all have the 2028 shirts. I mean, there is a lot of pressure on USA to really take some big steps. Yeah. In order to try to make that push for the Olympics in the coming years. Because as you guys know, like, just because you have IOC recognition doesn't mean you're in the Olympics.
Exactly.
You know, as we've seen with many other sports too.
Right.
So yeah, it's great. And I can tell you, I'm on the legal committee for Waco IF, and I work directly with Roy Baker, you know, multiple times throughout the month. We're talking, depending upon what's going on, sometimes daily. And there is really no harder working guy than him. Roy has done so much for the sport of kickboxing, as well as the board. And so, yeah, it's exciting, man. I mean, it opens up so many opportunities. Once we get the U.S. OPC recognition, you know, we're able to do things within the Olympic, you know, Federation in the United States, which is great. Like in some of the other countries, they already have that. You know, they already have recognition by their Olympic committee. So just creating more opportunities for the future of all the people in the sport of kickboxing, as we say it, but as sport martial arts as we know it here.
Yeah. So what do you feel like is going to be? We talked before, is, you know, Waco has a lot of divisions. Where do you think the focus is going to be on, really?
Well, ring sports is going to, I mean, if it's going to get in, you know, to Olympics, is going to be ring sports, I think, first. Of course, there is a lot of money and a lot of politics pushing forward for point fighting. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
I mean, but let's be honest, like Alex just said earlier about Kumite. What do the spectators want to see? What are people going to understand? People understand the knockout.
A knockout.
They understand boxing. They, you know, so I think it's the most friendly to the audience. But again, that depends on if that's what, you know, the IOC wants to, you know, if they want to showcase that, if they want to put that out there. But I think ring sports, you know, because of the World Games and the upcoming events, I think that that's probably going to be the biggest push. But point fighting will be right there. I mean, I really do think, just because of the people in Waco who are the heavy hitters and influence, they, you know, that's what they want.
That's what they want.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, look at, you have Karali and you have Roy. I mean, they are, of course, big tatami guys, but, you know, you got to look also at the reality of what's going to get the sport into the Olympics. You know, that's the biggest thing. So what do you guys think, in just from your perspective? Do you see the ring sports as being the more marketable piece?
I see it that way, just because it's a different element as that. But I also feel like musical forms and musical weapons can, if anything, it stands out more than anything there is. And it's the only thing that would hold that back is wushu, if wushu gets in, right?
Oh,
because there's a
wow.
big
I didn't even
similarity.
think of that.
And kind of like
Is
you were
that
telling me
is there a
before,
push for that?
they're
there-
they're recognized as well, right, Jared?
They have IOC, but it's like this: if they couldn't get it as a permanent sport when the Olympics was in China,
Yeah, you're right.
yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know. I mean, maybe, but the thing about Waco, I'll tell you, with the forms and weapons, though, Brian Beck has done such a good job, and I was the world chief referee for musical forms for several years before I got on the before I got on the legal committee, and the main thing was we were always like, if you look at it, there's deductions just like there is in just like there is in
Right.
gymnastics.
Yeah.
It's a 0.3 deduction for this, a one full point deduction for that, like things that we need in order to, like we said, relate. Okay, he
Yeah.
had a slight bobble of the weapon. This is a 0.3 deduction, or this is a full drop.
Yeah.
So you have those things already kind of teed up. But again, I think it can be, but again, I think it needs some polishing, and I think you need more of an influx of athletes into it.
Yeah.
Because if you've watched it, I mean, USA, if we send even our third or fourth best person,
correct.
besides the
Person on,
Italians, some of the English,
Some
the
of the- yeah.
Italians are really getting good. The Russians, there's really not as many countries, and so when you look at putting it in the
Correct.
Olympics, you better have a good representation of nations.
Yeah.
And
And there
so
really
I think
isn't when it would come to the forms. It would
Right.
just be
Exactly. Yeah. And
the US's ninth place, guy would win gold.
Right. Yeah, and that's I'm just looking at overall as far as the presentation of it. I think it attracts eyes more, but you also have the other end of, wait, this is supposed to be karate. This is supposed to be, you have that.
Like, what is this?
All the what is this, right? So
what is this, and why is this kickboxing, right? That's the
Yeah.
real
that's
question.
always that's a confusing thing. So, I mean, I see it on both ends.
Because you can't call it karate.
Right.
You just had, because that's what we all call it, just because
Yeah.
we're just so used to that,
Yeah.
So you can't call it that, because we'd be like, wait a minute, didn't I just watch that last Olympics? What is this thing? Well, no, it's kind of like Taekwondo. Well, isn't Taekwondo already in? Then what is this? What is this thing that they're doing?
That we're doing. Yeah,
Nobody
it's
would really
confusing.
know.
I think that's our biggest issue with martial arts anyway, is we're so divided anyway. And then you add in the sport element of it, and it's confusing as heck. So
it's
with the kickboxing, I guess I would agree with you that the full contact stuff would get in there a lot easier, just because it's easier to comprehend. It's easier to understand. It's exciting to get the point fighting side behind it. And I don't even want to go so much as to like, nah, it's not going to happen because nobody understands the rules. There's plenty of stuff nobody understands the rules, right? So
people watch gymnastics and don't understand the rules. So
right.
It's entertaining, though.
It is. It is.
It is entertaining. So to watch, as long as the best athletes are participating, then that would be cool. So what do you have any other info as to, like, what are the next movements towards making things like this happening?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is for each nation now is that getting your approval by your National Olympic Committee or National Olympic Federation, depending upon how it's set up in their countries. That is really the next step for Waco USA. I know that is that getting our USOPC recognition, and that's really the big step. The big step is IOC, and in some countries, if you get IOC, you're automatically recognized. And
It's just over. You're already
some countries, yes, and some countries you can get it before even being recognized by the IOC. And so I think that I think you will see it in the USA. I saw Andrew walk.
Yeah, I know, that was a good one.
Yeah, exactly. So, but here I believe it will happen. It just it takes a little bit of time. Just like anything, there's a lot of red tape. Anytime government, right? You gotta go through a lot of processes, but rightfully so. And I think some great steps, I will say, is a few things that are happening that are taking those steps towards that is the safe sport training, which is now available through Waco USA to create background checks that do the background checks and the sexual abuse and molestation training for all of the instructors and coaches, as well as the coaches. There's a coaches certification training that they put together, a multi-part training on that is really, intensive, covering everything, not just, of course, how to train your athletes, but of the dangers of overtraining, and of course the proper hydration, nutrition, everything to be able to, put together a full system for coaching. So I think those are some really great steps, and I'm really excited, Robin. Well, we haven't even announced it yet, but I'll tell you now, is that for the first time ever, we are going to do a joint national championship between tatami and ring sports next year in Nashville. And so we are really excited to come together and do tatami and ring together next year. So, just creating that unity between the ring and the tatami, getting athletes that may be able to cross over from both sides, and creating that camaraderie and unity, I think, is really important. So those are kind of some of the next steps, I believe, that are going to do some great things for the federation, at least in the United States.
Right. No, I love that, man, because that's what I feel like the teams in Europe have that we don't. It's like you got to go to two separate things and this and that. And I mean, I remember doing the WKA when I was a kid, and it was, if I wanted to do continuous, that was its own qualification. If I wanted to do forms, it was its own. And then if you want to do kickboxing, it was a whole different one. It was just like crazy, So that's a huge benefit, I feel like.
Yeah, for sure.
So Jarrett, I've talked to Rob a couple of times, and he's spending a lot of time in Nashville. And you just mentioned like the national qualifier is going to be in Nashville. Why Nashville? What's the deal with that?
So there's a couple things, and this is we actually put in a bid to host the World Championships this year because they fell through because of the COVID situation and everything in Russia. Well, Russia's Olympic situation is really why it fell through.
Right.
And then they opened it up for bidding again. And WACO felt that it was best to have it in Italy, where they had the chief medical officers located there. They had a lot of things. But basically, I'm telling you this because we had put a bid and we wanted to host it in the United States. But the issue is that we don't have the US OPC recognition, right? So then we are regulated by the boxing commissions in most states. And so, this creates issues, number one. Number two, there are things with like a world championship where in WACO, if you go to Europe, everyone you fight for your nation. Just like in the NBA sends professional basketball players to go play in the Olympics, right? Yeah. But in kickboxing, if you do that in most states in the United States, if I sent a pro kickboxer from Russia to go fight an amateur kickboxer from Texas, they would never allow it to happen. They wouldn't allow the event to happen. And so in Tennessee, Rob has worked really hard with the government there and the mayor of Nashville and senators to get the laws to favor WACO, to tell them, like, look, this is like Olympic basketball. We got to allow people that are, pros, amateurs, to be able to cross over in a safe amateur environment with gear, right? Just like WACO is. And so they understand it and they play ball. And so we're able to run the events there and have support there, but also just able to run the events. Like, we wanted to host the Worlds in Las Vegas, and we were bidding for it, and the issues are just the boxing commissions, and they wouldn't allow it. And so imagine,
the boxing commission is like the mob.
Well, it is, and you can't imagine. You tell all these world champions from Russia or somewhere, oh no, you can't come because you're not allowed because you've already fought pro fights. So that kind of lays the groundwork of why Tennessee, because Tennessee has favorable laws towards kickboxing and WACO.
Thanks for explaining that. Good question.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think there's so many things that your background. Again, people don't know you're a lawyer. You've done this for years. You work with WACO USA. Your dad is a part of a NASCA tournament. So you have a great background, on everything. So you can understand it all and you can explain it. So that's why we wanted you on the show. Let's talk about the VFT. All right. So this is exciting. The Virtual Fight Tour. You guys are partnered with them at the Amerikick Internationals. and what part are they going to be doing? Just
Yeah,
explain
so
that.
How's that gonna
Jesse
look,
came to
too?
me. Yeah, Jesse came to me with the idea of putting the lightweight winner versus the heavyweight winner because I agree. Last man standing is
Yeah.
last woman standing, last man standing is my favorite thing. I think that's the true grand champion, right?
Exactly.
That's why we have an open weight division now because of the split
The split.
of those things, right? And
Yeah.
so I loved the idea. I see Jesse's commenting, and thank you, Jesse, for the support, of course, and the great idea. And I said, yeah, we'd love to have the opportunity to showcase it. And so it's going to be VFT rules as well as his VFT referees, but it will be taking the winner of the NASCA lightweight versus NASCA heavyweight.
Okay.
To have an
Well,
actual grand
Yeah.
champion.
and that would
Yeah.
be like,
So that your
like the grand
championship is
finale.
actually grand.
Yeah, so you want to talk about so many. There is like you can win the overall grand for lightweight and heavyweight. Then you can win the VFT plus the open weight. So there is a lot of opportunity. Plus the team fights. I'll never forget. It was like the year I think Avery. He came in and just robbed us blind because he won everything. Was like
Yeah.
heavyweight grand champion or open weight. Open weight. It was
Yeah,
the year
you
we gave
guys
$5
had
grand,
your-
I think. And then the team fight, like
Yeah.
it was crazy. So
Yeah.
rightfully so, he earned it. And so I love that they have an opportunity to have many opportunities for grands. And what'll be cool to see is will we see a consistent winner across the board under a NASCAR rule set, VFT, WACO, like 3 different rule sets
Exactly.
in
I like that.
an event. Let's see, do the fighters adapt? Do one fighter does better under one rule set? So I think that will make things kind of interesting as well.
That's really true, man. And that's what I've always liked about y'all, from a spectator even point of view, is your event is, the WACO divisions, the the open weight, the NASCA division, everything's a little different, so pretty
It
cool
is going to
stuff.
be a little. It is going to be a little confusing though, because we're going to go from
Yeah.
the match before, where 2-point body kicks are okay, and then immediately after, all right, this winner.
Yeah.
They're probably
You're right.
same judges.
No, different.
Different
for
judges,
sure.
though?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
different
good.
judges for NASCA, then different judges for VFT,
Yeah.
and then the
Hawkins
WACO
goes
judges
center.
will be separate too. So I think
Oh,
the main
that's
thing,
good.
Alex, you're right. Maybe confusion for the fighters and the coaches. They got to make sure they have the
Yep.
rules tight. But what I didn't want to see is exactly what you said. The same judge judging everything, and then they're like, "Oh wait, 2-1. Wait, exit. Wait."
That's exactly.
That's the biggest issue with it, man. That's always been the biggest problem with NASCA events is the change each time. It's problem that we've dealt with in NBL events. We've tried to do different rules for underbelts and black belts and
It's hard.
this and this, and it's hard, man. And you also do on the scorekeepers too when they're having to, because we would have at one point where at underbelt events the time would just go, but for black belt you had to stop it every time in 30 seconds. That's confusing when they go from ring to ring or whatever, right? They don't know.
And different scoreboard. That's one great thing about Uventex though is like it will bring up the scoreboard. So like when you have a WACO scoreboard up, you see it. It's got the exits, it's got the verbal warning, it's got the official warning, all of that. It has the logo. So yeah, I mean, I think for the judging and the scorekeeping, we have separate teams for it for the night show. So that will be easy. I think just for the fighters and the coaches, we will. They gotta, of course, remember. But all these guys are so seasoned and so smart.
It is.
I know
they can adapt.
I'm interested to see though,
how
that will turn out with the different fighters. If one person wins them all.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, if one person wins it all. I mean, who could that possibly we could be? We could have a Bailey. Team Straight Up could totally do that. Could have Avery. I don't know what team Impex is going to be coming with.
Right.
But
in the open weight, in the NASCA and the VSC, all that. I mean, if Avery Plowden is at the tournament, you can't ever count him out, man. I mean, he is so smart, but he is such a great fighter.
Yeah.
And I think that for me, that's the fight. I want to see him. I want to see him fight with Bailey. I'd like to see him fight with some of the other guys in there. I think will be really good. But yeah, if it will be interesting to see for sure.
Yeah,
I think this is one of the only times I can think of being involved in martial arts saying, geez, there's just that many guys who could win the heavyweight side.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like it's as deep as you could think on the lightweight side of things.
Very.
And on the heavyweight side of things, it's just not that many names that you can go, oh yeah, they'll win it all. Oh yeah, they'll for sure. They got a chance to win it all. You might have 5 guys.
Right.
She'd be like, yeah, they could, you know. But it's just like we were just talking about. You got Avery, and then of course we all go to Cam.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, is Cam
Who's
going to
not
be there? We don't
active
know.
right now. So
Yeah. So then you go.
Well, on the show the other night when I did Alex's show on Point Fighter, he said Cam was going to be there. So
all right.
So we'll see.
There we go.
He did say that. So we'll see what happens. That would be great. I mean,
We've been
you're
wanting
right.
to see
You're
Avery
right.
versus Cam.
Yeah, it's Alex is like it's not like when you go to Irish Open and you have a Roman and you have an Avery and you have a Tolley and you have a lot of great heavyweight fighters. I mean, there's good guys here, but it's not like you said where you have 4 or 5 guys that are just killers.
Correct.
So,
Correct.
but I think that makes opportunity for people, right?
Yeah.
And that's where people gotta come up and make their names. So
Well, also, there's a lot of youth.
Yeah.
Let them put some weight on. Let's just get there.
That's right.
Let's get there.
Yeah.
I mean,
Hey,
Bailey
people
could
forget
be
this.
in the heavyweight in a few years, right?
Dude, Raymond and I were lightweights together.
That's right.
I'm not light.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how their bodies develop and how people grow and their skill sets, adapt to their growth. That's for sure. Especially because they're all so young,
Mhm.
and some of them, somebody like a Bailey, like he's the guy with the mindset that says, okay, if I've cleaned this out, I'm going for this guy. What weight class? Okay, I got to go down. I'll do it. I got to go up. I'll do it. He literally is that guy.
Yeah.
He will purposefully go to a division just for this fighter, and I know he has that mindset, like with some certain guys in Europe that he wants to fight.
Yeah.
Like, look, I will move up weight just to go there to fight this guy, so it'll be interesting to see for sure.
All right, so Jarrett, let's talk a little bit. You've been all over the place. I'm trying to think which one to go through first. Let's go ahead and just talk a little bit about growing up. So you're a second generation martial artist. Your dad had a long running tournament for years. You grew up in this thing. We met originally in the NBL years and years ago, and
long time ago.
Yeah, man. And so let's just talk about that and maybe how that shaped you growing up in the NBL and how that maybe led to you making your impact as really the first, not the first, okay, but maybe the most impactful to make classical kata a thing of what it is now in NASCA.
Yeah. What was your dad's tournament to? Was it Tornado International?
Internationals. Yeah. So I will just preface this by saying I have kind of a brain block because I like to think about when I competed is a different life, is a different person, is a different thing because now I am so focused on coaching that it's like when I learn something, okay, it's about my kids. I learned something, I can help this person. So, I kind of try to be like, yeah, competing, whatever. Like if you come in my house, I don't have any trophies or pictures or anything. It's just me, but I will do my best to talk about the past. But
yeah,
I
cool. I love that.
I think growing up in NBL was I loved the rules, of course. I loved being able to do continuous. I didn't really like kata when I was younger at all. More like weapons and sparring. But as many of you guys know, I had a spinal fusion when I was 18 years old, and so I couldn't fight anymore. And doctors were like, look, you can do forms and you can do weapons. You can't go upside down or anything. Well, okay, I guess I'll try this kata thing out. So, it wasn't really out of choice. It was out of necessity. Like, you're going to give up on martial arts or you're going to go pursue something else. And so, I really enjoyed growing up in the NBL. Did we just lose Jeff?
They'll come back.
Okay. Yeah, no.
I don't know what happened, but I'm into this, man. Keep going.
No, so yeah, I started my first Super Grands was in 1991 when I was 5 years old. And so we did NBL all the way up until 2002 was my last Super Grands, and then 2003, 2004, we went and we did the WSKF, and then I got diagnosed with my spinal condition, and my dad just kind of said, "All right, we're gonna focus on your health," and we kind of shut it down. And then after I had my surgery in May of '05, I started competing again, and I went to NASCA in end of 2006, November 2006, Pan Am's, and then started shifting over to NASCA from there. So that was kind of my NBL life growing up. And Jeff, I we met, man, I 98 or 99 maybe. So
Wow.
that's when we first met. Yeah, 98 or 99, I think, is because he was doing NASCA, and then CJB, well, Elite and CJB started doing some NBL, and they used to come to our tournament here in Kansas City all the time, Tornadoes. So yeah, that's kind of my background on the NBL. And but NASCA side, we went here because we had been in NBL forever, and I wanted to do something different. And I
Right.
wanted to, so I wanted to try something else. And so, I think the biggest thing for me with the kata stuff. Hey, what's up, Jeff?
What's up? I heard you.
Yeah, no. So biggest thing for me with the kata, with kind of all of that, was I came to NASCA and I watched what was winning, and I was like, okay, I got to do what they're doing. And then I just didn't do well. I did well with my weapons, with my trad bow, but like my kata, I just wasn't doing well. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna do the way I know how to do it. I'm just gonna do traditional kata, and if they hate it, they already hate me with this kata. So I'm getting fifth or sixth. So I'm just gonna keep focus on my weapons, and try to win there, keep winning there, and then I'm gonna go over and I'm just gonna do my kata that I know how to do, and just do traditional. And it continued to move forward, and the referees liked it, and we instituted they added the trad challenge. And one of the reasons why I think that helped too was, if you remember, Alex, I'm sure you do, because you and Jeff, you both did Korean, and it was like they wouldn't allow you to do both
Both.
Japanese and Korean,
Right.
Yeah, you
right?
couldn't do that.
And so you couldn't do it. And
Yeah.
so was like, all right, I'll do trad challenge, and then I will do Korean as well, because
Yeah.
they still, even if I'd win trad challenge, I was never doing well in grands with it. So I'm like, okay, I need to give a form that the referees, like.
Right.
And so, it was like I was still kind of I was doing the Korean, and I was doing the trad challenge, and then eventually just started catching on with the traditional classical kata. And
Yeah.
I think I think was my goal, was that I said, look, I'm not going to adapt. I'm not going to change. I'm just going to do it the way that we're taught classically, and they
Right.
like it or they don't.
Right.
And I think people like Joe Anon, referees like that, they liked it, and you would see it continue to catch on. And that's the way I taught all my kids, and that's the way I taught all my students, and that's that kind of started that catalyst for it,
Right.
as we move forward. So that's kind of like that transition from NBL to NASCA, and kind of a classical kata
Yeah.
piece. So yeah.
Right. Because
So
awesome.
is that kind of what led you to be? Because then all of a sudden there was just like this shift. All of a sudden you just became this kata guy. Like you were the guy that all of a sudden everybody, you wanted to be good. If you wanted to be really good, people were looking at Jarrett. Like how did that come about? Because there was a time where you weren't, and then all of a sudden it was just like
You're
Jarrett's the
right.
guy.
No, you're right 100%. I mean, I think because I was doing well with my weapons and score and getting in the night show, and doing well with that, so that kind of helped build my NASCA brand to start. And then, with the kata, I really think is when I started doing it in the grands with the music.
Okay. Yeah.
I
All
think
right.
that
That's
was
what I was gonna
I
say. I was
think
like,
that was
really? I think
that
it's the
was
music that really.
no, that was
Yeah.
the one. I mean, I think when we put together the choreographed
Mhm.
kata to Superempe with the music, I think that was the thing that really made the switch,
Yeah.
for the crowd, for the referees,
And
for
Jared, I
things.
think weren't you doing that in the musical division before there was a traditional I think it was before there was a traditional challenge. Yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
you were
did.
doing
I
that,
did
yeah.
it because I was trying to figure out a way, like,
What to
how
do.
can I do traditional, but also because I had to choose Japanese
Yeah.
or Korean,
And at the time,
you
you were
know,
doing well in Korean, you know? So it's
because
like,
in
hey,
Japanese, they still weren't scoring the classical kata well. So I was like, all right, let me go do it over here with music, and then I'll do the Korean over here, and I have a better opportunity. I was young too in college, and I'm like,
yeah,
how can I win money in CMX and in trad? How
right.
can I win the money in both grands?
Yeah.
So I did that with weapons and forms, so both, so I could be in trad forms, trad weapons, CMX forms, CMX weapons, and try to be in all 4 grands to,
Yeah.
you know, again, I was a young guy. I'm like, hey, I want to win some money.
Exactly.
So, how can I maximize my trip? So that was kind of the deal. We added the music, and I think that was really one of the big turning points was
Yeah.
putting the music to the kata.
Yeah.
Now you brought up the weapons. So were you? And I believe it was the case. But are you the first person to do a double bow?
In a tournament, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
when was that, and how did that come to be? Because it kind of feels like that's something that people just kind of talked about, in the karate schools all the time. Like, oh yeah, what if somebody did a double bow for him? Ha ha ha! That's silly
Yeah.
talk. Nobody's actually gonna
Well,
do something like that.
I'll tell you, we joked around back when Corey Lucas was competing. We would joke around with it in the team. Same thing, joke around. And then I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna do this. And I did it at the Diamonds 1 year,
Right.
and it was just kind of did it just to do it. And then I was like, all right, I guess I'll really take this serious. And then the next year I did it, and won, and then made it to the night show, and I dropped in the night show, which sucked. But hey, it was fun. And but yeah, that was kind of the kickoff to it. And I'll tell you, I mean, like, you look at like guys like Anthony Demore, well, really Reed, and then Anthony, like
Yeah.
the evolution of it is like,
It's crazy.
made my form look like the basic kata in a a tournament or in somebody's dojo,
Yeah.
So I mean, if you look at where it was and what it is now, but yeah, I mean, it started out, we were literally just playing around with something in a training camp, and then I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna do it.
Yeah.
And then I remember I ordered the bows and we played with it. And then the next year I'm like, all right, do it again. But I waited all the way till the Diamonds to do it again in the following year. So yeah, that was the
cool,
story
man.
of the double bow.
Yeah.
I
Awesome,
still
man.
think it's madness that top weapons competitors even buy weapons anymore. I still think it's madness. I think whoever's making weapons should just be funneling them right at these top weapons competitors. That's just a total sidebar madness thing to me. I don't understand it.
I think that a lot of them do. I mean, guys, I
Yeah.
know Mike and Chris, 10th degree. I know they support a lot of our guys that do really well, and top guys, and I'm sure that Joe does too. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you, especially bow. I mean, bow athletes, and they're breaking their bows, or I
Every
mean,
month.
swords. Swords. I don't know how
Yeah.
long. You can ask Calvin how long a sword lasts.
That's a good point.
I'm sure a while. But
I think
to your
so.
point, I agree. Yeah, I agree.
Commas are getting worse and worse now, I believe. I mean, I remember when I broke my commas, it was like 5-6 years, and I was like devastated, when I got my original commas, and I just, the ones that lasted for almost 10 years.
You
And
look at
they
the
were,
releases and stuff they're doing though now. I
yeah,
mean, it's
exactly.
like,
They're hitting the
Yeah.
floor a lot more, and
Yeah.
that's the thing,
Yeah.
and a lot of the weapons are hitting the floor in training more. So it's going to add to the wear and tear. So
Yeah, I still think, as far as the comments, I still think the G4S is the
Yeah.
best. I had the Edelora ones, that
Yeah.
he made like forever
love
ago.
those, yeah.
Those were fantastic, and I still think
Yeah.
G-Force ones are even better.
My original G-Force ones are still intact. And
Right?
the only thing that fell apart was the grip on them. And
Right.
I
You
just-
Bro,
just
do you
regrip
remember
those things like every other year. You're fine.
I remember I still got a pair of Mike Chat commas in
Yep.
in our dojo that from years ago. I mean, I still got an
Oh.
original pair of those.
Those
And,
things got to be like 25 pounds a piece.
heavy. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I mean, those when those broke on me, I was just like, what the heck, And the thing is, it wasn't even something they didn't break doing like a form or something. Like we were actually doing like a self-defense with them, and so it like,
Stop.
it was because of, us hitting it with other weapons. So it wasn't like they were badly made.
Well, that's why they're called performance weapons.
Exactly.
Yeah, not for Kabuto.
Hey. Oh
Yeah.
man. So Jared, let's talk about, how you're ahead of everybody on this whole pandemic thing with the Zoom and the virtual lessons. This is something you've been doing for a long time. And I know other people have too, but it really became like something that got you through law school, really, right?
Oh man, yeah, it's crazy. I look back to and I won't. I'll be the first one to always give credit to someone who was there first. And in my opinion, the goat of forums in open forums, Matt Emig.
Yep.
In
Agreed.
my opinion, the best to ever do it. Matt was the one who told me. He was like, "Hey, I'm doing some of these online lessons," and I was like, "Man, that's really cool." And he was, I think, it was teaching a few people, and I think maybe he was training, too, that way. I don't know, but I was like, "Hey, I'm gonna kind of look into this," and I started with Skype, and then just started really building a real business out of it. And when I say that, like being able to reach people all over the world, at one point I had students in like 6 countries, and so what's really been cool though, I think, is that with what I do with kata, you can do it because like you have you're preparing them. Like my coaching looks like I give them a training plan with all their physical training specifically tailored to what they need to do, agility, mobility, and then we do a whole Kihon, which basic set that I will assign for them, and then we do the private lessons, one-on-one. I do group classes online throughout the week with different groups. And so the thing is it's like, you just have to figure out a way to just like anything. You have to figure out a way to systemize your approach.
Right.
And so that's really what I did is I set that up that way and figured out a great way, and through a lot of trial and error, just like anything, to produce good athletes via online. I mean, if you look at a lot of the kids that I've taught, I mean, tons of them are from different places. It's a blessing when I get to see them in person. But I also feel
Wow.
I also feel that like some people are like, oh, it's not as good online. No, it's not. It's just different.
Exactly.
If you know
Agreed.
how to teach it, right?
Right.
And again, I think if I was a fighting teacher or something like that, it's a completely different ballgame. But because I do kata, I think because of what I do, it's more scalable online.
Yeah.
I think it is.
Yeah. I mean, you just like anything, you have to, if you're running a class, you need to be able to engage with everyone. Everyone has to feel you. And the same thing needs to happen when you're doing Zoom. If you do a class, a private, a seminar, whatever, the more that you're not just standing there and performing and hoping everyone watch you, you got to engage with those people and make them feel, at
It's
home.
exhausting.
And be like, oh, it is, but it's fun, man. I mean, for me, it was a challenge to really. I mean, I was doing a few, not as much, not even close to what you're doing, but I had about 2 or 3 people that I was doing online with before all of this, right? And just consistent. And I'd done a couple of like classes or seminars like that before, but so I had a little bit, but the thing was just the technology, making sure that we had the right, because really Zoom not Zoom, Skype was kind of just,
Yeah, Zoom is a game changer. I
Zoom was
mean,
a
I
game
think it's so
changer.
much better. Yeah, for sure. I started on Skype too, the
Right.
same. The fun thing about Skype is I go back and you can look at all your call logs, right? And you scroll back for years, 2000, like all the years that doing lessons. And I did that one day and I scrolled back to like, the old, way old time, years ago. So it's kind of cool. But yeah,
That's
with
cool.
Zoom is so much better, especially for the group seminars. I'd say Politi just commented on that. So yeah, like I do stuff in his school pretty frequently. But yeah, it's great. I mean, I think it opens the door, just like in my legal profession. People were like, oh, I don't like Zoom. And then when they realized they didn't have to drive 2 hours to a hearing in the middle of nowhere, Missouri, and they just had to turn on their screen
Right.
and they're in front of the judge. And then next thing they know, they go to the next one and the next one. Like, wow, I kind of like this.
Yeah.
And it's same thing with this. Is it's like you from one call to the next, you can be in different parts of the world. So it's cool for sure. It's a blessing that we were doing it before. So it enabled our dojo to just switch. Really
Right.
really quick. We actually grew our dojo during the pandemic.
Awesome. Awesome.
So it's like
That's good.
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge. That's great, man. And I know you guys have you guys recently opened up another location, or just was a separate after school location, right?
no, another location.
Okay.
About 3 minutes from my house, which is
Okay.
nice. So
Nice.
yeah,
Nice.
That's
Nice.
ideal.
yeah.
That's great.
I could easily run there, but some people in our neighborhood, they drive golf carts up to the
Okay,
shopping center.
you're in
That
one of
shows you how
those
close it
areas.
is.
Okay.
That shows you how close it is.
Yeah.
Wow. All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
I have good friends that live in North Carolina in that town. Yeah. Every house owns their own golf cart because you can drive it around the whole town. That's part of the
We don't have one.
legal.
We don't have one yet, but a lot of my neighbors do, and I
Yeah.
don't golf or anything. So I don't
Dude,
have
none
one,
of
but
these
it sounds
people
like
do
I need one.
either. They just have golf carts because it's legal to drive golf carts on the road in the town, and so
Get
everybody
the
does it.
heck out.
Yeah,
For
man.
real?
Yeah, it's a thing. Some towns are like that. Oh man.
It's
So
great.
yeah, dude. Thank you so much for joining us, Jared. I know I mean, we could talk for hours because there's so much that we can get into. But let's we haven't done this in a while, Alex. But let's end it on your voicemail to the world. What
Yep.
do you want people to know? What is it you just want to leave the sport karate world or everyone that's listening with?
Well, I think that you need to push your students and you need to push yourselves towards the places that are going to give the best experience for your families and for you. And I really believe that focusing on World Karate Federation, WACO, those are the future of our open sport martial arts. And that's where my focus is. And that's where I'm pushing my kids. Because for me, it's not about the win or the loss. When I know I've got the best system and the most qualified people sitting in front of me, and I know I can sleep easy at night knowing that, yeah, not everything always goes our way. But if you're an instructor out there and or a school owner, or if you're looking for somewhere to compete, I highly recommend getting your kids and getting your school involved in WACO and getting involved in the World Karate Federation, depending upon what your areas are. I really think they are not the future. They're the present
Right.
and the future of our sport. And so, I highly recommend doing that for any martial artist out there. They are moving forward, and everyone else is standing still.
Awesome.
And that's my message.
Yeah. Awesome. I love it. All right.
Yeah.
So you did that very fast. And so now in my head, other things went, and I just want fun stuff because, all right, tell us your favorite, maybe growing up or just maybe three, your favorite forms of weapons competitors that maybe motivated you
Ooh, that's a
and
good
just
one,
inspired
Jeff.
you. You mentioned Matt
great.
Inning, so
Yeah, I mean, as a competitor competing alongside him, for sure. Like I mentioned earlier, Matt is he was so incredible. I mean, and you put him out there right now, he'd probably beat everybody.
yeah,
That's
I loved him, and he was always a very motivating person to stand beside, and knowing like, man, I gotta move up. I gotta keep pushing. And
yeah.
so, yeah, a lot of respect for him. I think also Calvin Choka is right there as well. I mean,
Hmm.
talk about a humble, just good person, always really leading by example. And you want to talk about changing the sport. I mean,
Oh
through
gosh,
some of his performances, I get goosebumps just still thinking about him. But going old school for me, Jeff, Butch Togisawa was always one of
yep,
my
yep.
people that I looked up to as a little kid. He was here and came into Kansas several times and
Several
competed with
times.
our team. And in his time, he was as good as it ever gets.
Yeah, yep,
And of course, my friend Keith Weston,
yeah.
looking up to Keith growing up, he was
Those two
incredible
guys,
martial
man.
artist.
Mm,
I mean, those two guys in our era of,
yeah,
in NBL, you didn't find any guys better.
No.
So I'd say those are some of my guys, that people that pushed me, people that motivated me at all ages of my life. Those are guys, of course, that I looked up to and
Yeah.
also pushed me.
All right, let's say fighting, but one more thing. All right, one of the team fighting, the junior teams, it was you, Willie, and was it Vince Johnson? Was that the team at one point?
Corey
And
Cuppy.
Corey as
That
well. I know at one
when I
point
fought
Vince
with
was in
Coach
there.
Plowden. Yes.
Yeah, man. There were so many. That was a fun time. It's like you and Willie were the team for a while, man. And yeah.
I love Willie, and that's if we talk about back in the fighting time, I mean, it's hard to say our era of sparring, me just growing up in NBL, without mentioning Jack Felton or Willie Hicks. I mean,
Yeah.
Right.
to me, those guys, just growing up with them, they're just amazing fighters, and Willie, of course, that was the best time. I mean, I still, every time I see Mr. Plowden, I still say coach,
Yeah.
to him, because it was a great opportunity to fight with their team and fight with SES at that
Yeah.
time when we were doing teams, and so it was a great time. That was for sure one of my
that was
favorite times
cool.
of my life.
All right, favorite top 3 or favorite fighters, because we got to share that too, because people always think, oh, we only care about the forms. No, like, dude, you know how
Yeah.
it is.
He's never, to be honest, it's not even I think Raymond is the best to ever do it.
Yep.
Growing up watching him, I think he is for sure the best to ever do it. And I got to watch him grow up, even wearing the green uniform in with his brother. So
Yeah.
those guys, I mean, of course he's
Yeah.
there, and Tankson, I mean, you'd have a hard time finding somebody as gifted as him. And I loved watching. Yes, Jason Tankson, and his dad, of course.
Yeah.
Jason Tankson. I really respect him as well. And third fighter, man, I loved Trevor Nash, but I loved me some Brian Plemple back in the day, man. I really did. I love, but for his injuries that he had, I mean, I never forget, we were at the Bluegrass together, and my dad was coaching him, and he was there, and you remember that big brawl broke out.
Yeah, we talked about that last week.
The guy had the nunchuck, was coming after him, and so I think of heavy hitters, big strong fighters like that. I love some Trevor and Plemple. Those guys are definitely right in there for me.
It's that generation, man, that's just like, and that was our era. We were growing up watching those guys, and we were like the next, because they were really 2 or 3, 4 years older than us, or at least me, and maybe a little bit more. You're like 2, 3 years younger than me. So,
yeah, I'm 34.
Yeah. So yeah.
For 11 more days.
All right.
My birthday is the tournament weekend, so
oh wow,
I'll be working the whole time.
That's right.
But yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. So those are my guys.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks for sharing that, Jarrett. Man, this was a lot of fun. I mean, I feel like we could do another episode.
I know. This was fantastic.
Yeah. So thank you, man, and have a great time in next week and your birthday and everything.
I appreciate the opportunity to come on, guys. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
No problem, man.
Well, this has been another episode of Inside Scoop with Alex and Jeff. I'm Alex Dingman.
I'm Jeff Doss. See you guys next week. Thank you, Jarrett Leiker.